right. Hello. Welcome to this half hour of FileMaker instruction. My name is Matt Petrowski. I'm going to be your host for this content. Let me wind our music down here, our intro music. I am the editor-in-chief at ISO FileMaker Magazine. And in these videos, what we're doing is we are going through a course of content that I'm calling the Scriptology Mastery Course. And the very first thing that I'm teaching you in FileMaker, and this whole course is predicated on the premise that you are a beginning FileMaker learner or you are an intermediate developer, and you really want to master FileMaker. You want to know everything that you can about FileMaker to make some really cool solutions. So I'm going through the software as if I know nothing, which is sort of hard. I've been working with FileMaker for quite a bit of time, but that is the goal. So these are being recorded live, and you are able to, during the time that I'm recording these, if you happen to find this video, if you'd like to check in, you can actually go to a website. I'll show you the place where you can sign up and join up to the live feed. I'm doing it at 11 o'clock, pretty much roughly 11 o'clock almost every day for multiple weeks. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're just going to be going through FileMaker. So that's what you came here for. Let's go through the content. Let me move this off screen and switch to my desktop view here. And that URL, by the way, let's switch over to Safari. Here is the magazine website. If you're unfamiliar with it and you're watching YouTube, let me zoom in on that URL right there. That's where you can access additional FileMaker content if you are interested in it. I've been providing that for many, many years, and it's this link right here. If you're interested in being notified, you can click on this link right here, and it will take you to a notification or a page where you can enter your email for notification about this particular course as I'm giving it. So let's head into the content. If you watched the previous video, then what we talked about is we started talking about FileMaker's environment. And I mentioned that one of the things, as I switch over to FileMaker, that we'll be going over is the Manage area of FileMaker. Now, this is the core of where you're going to pretty much manage everything about your FileMaker database. I mentioned that we'll be jumping into this, but I actually want to take a little bit of a deviation before we head into the database, talking about normalization, security, value lists, all of these things which can get very complex once they become intertwined with each other. I wanted to go through just the basic modes that FileMaker has. And if you'd like to follow along, please do so. Here in FileMaker, I'm just going to go to this Get Started. It's going to bring up FileMaker's little dialog. I am shooting this with a copy of FileMaker 16, and fortunately, FileMaker does not change too much between each of the versions. They will get some major features, but the underlying core of how FileMaker works really hasn't changed for a long time. So I'm going to scroll all the way down this window. You may get a window that looks like this if you have a copy of FileMaker 16. You can always pick any one of these starter solutions in order to learn from with FileMaker. They are basic solutions that don't have a lot of complexity, so I wouldn't call them mastery of FileMaker, but they do get you started. I'm going to start with the contacts here if you want to start along as well, and just simply throw that onto my desktop. And I'll close this window right here. And one of the things that you're going to see me do throughout this course is use multiple windows in order to convey what's going on and how FileMaker works. It just, for me, visually, it makes it a lot easier to learn that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the new window or the window menu here, and I'm just going to choose a new window. And again, if you see keys within my copy of FileMaker, I have modified my copy of FileMaker. Please go take a look at video number 1 towards the end, and you will see where I'm actually controlling those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up 4 different windows, and I probably really only need I'd say 3 of those out of all of them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put each one of these in the 4 different modes that FileMaker has. And with this separation, maybe I could get these on screen a little bit nicer here for us. maybe in 4. Actually, you know what is really nice? Instead of trying to arrange this by myself, why don't we just go to the window command? And we have these options right here of tile horizontally, vertically, cascade, and bring all to front. Watch the magic that happens when we choose tile horizontally, and we will get all 4 windows on the screen at one time. That's really handy while you're working in FileMaker. As we move through this series, I will show you how to approach your development from the mindset of a developer versus the mindset of a user. And that's one of the things that I like to use. We'll get into looking at developer tables and using those. But for right now, we're looking at FileMaker's modes, and let's go ahead and do that. For this window, we will leave this as is, and we're going to do most of our changing here in the View menu with Browse, Find, Layout, and Preview. Now, these all sound pretty obvious, but I'm going through this as if I didn't know FileMaker, just so that I can understand what's going on. I'm putting the window up here, which happens to say Contacts 3, into Find mode. I'll go over to this one. I'll go into Layout mode, and then here I will go to Preview mode. Now, these are the 4 modes that you have in FileMaker, and right off the bat, you as a developer will be spending most of your time in these 2 views. Now, you can see as I click here, I'm getting this palette, and I'm going to close that temporarily. We'll get to that. These 2 modes are Browse and Layout. Now, I always think about this as basically edit mode or working mode for the user, and then this one is design mode or creative mode. It's where you're creating things. So this is probably where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time. When it comes to what users see prior to printing, Preview mode down here is something that is pretty nice to have. But what you're going to find as we go throughout this course, I'm going to give you little tips and tricks because I've been working with FileMaker for such a long time that they're really nice to pick up. One of the things that some FileMaker developers don't happen to know or don't investigate while they're in one of the lesser used modes is what is available to you. Now we can see quite clearly here that we have Save as Excel, Save as PDF, Print, and Page Setup. But one of the things I encourage you to do is to go up to the menus and just see what you have available to you in the different modes. Now as I move back here and take a look at the Edit, notice that Copy is actually an option that we have available to us in Preview mode. So instead of thinking of Preview mode as just simply the mode where you preview something prior to output or printing it, you can also use Preview mode for the purpose of creating and then capturing a graphic. And it turns out that you can copy this, which I just did in Preview mode, and you could now paste this if you wanted to. In fact, we can click over onto the Contacts, this window right here, which is in Layout mode, one of the 2 modes that we work in most. I'll scroll this window up a little bit bigger, and then I am going to select, it's telling it can't be modified, and that's because I've got these other windows open. I would need to actually switch to another view. Let's go ahead and do that really quickly. If you want to follow along, I'm going to switch to just the standard Contacts, which is going to be a list. This is going to give me a prompt and tell me that the object that I'm pasting is larger than my layout, which is going to be fine in this case because I really don't care about destroying this file. So I just hit Command V or Control V, and I'm pasting that, and look at what I get. I get the graphic of what I was previewing in that preview mode. So that's a really nice, these little things are handy to know as you're developing because they are what give you the creative incentive to come up with ideas. Say, for example, you have a report, and that report or the report includes a graph, but you want to be able to SMS or email a digital version of that. You don't want to just use FileMaker's Save as PDF, save the PDF, then attach it to email. You actually just want to capture it. Well, because you know that you can copy in Preview mode, you can actually perform that process when we get to the point where we're writing a script. So other than that, Preview mode is pretty much what it sounds like, just a simple preview of whatever your output is going to be. Now, the fourth mode that we haven't talked about is find mode right here. And if you've been a long time working with FileMaker, this is a copy of FileMaker 16, and FileMaker 16 was the first version that FileMaker actually removed something from the bottom area of the FileMaker window. Ever since FileMaker was created, or since I've been working with it, all the way back to FileMaker 2, it had this bar down at the bottom, and if you're working with FileMaker 15 and prior, that bar will still be there. It will have a little icon for zooming in and out. It will have another icon for switching the four modes, which currently in FileMaker 16 and higher, again, as stated, are pretty much only available right here in the menu through their keys or what have you. But in FileMaker 15 earlier, you did have that switch. Now, find mode, out of all of them, is a unique situation for FileMaker. Most database systems require the developer to actually write in a language known as SQL. Well, there are other languages as well, but they have to write or give the instructions for what they want to look for. For example, they would have to say, I want you to use the title field, and I want you to use the first name field, and I want you to find everyone where the title is Mr. and the first name is Bob. So that's going to go to your, the data, look within the data and find all those results and pull just those results back. Well, FileMaker works the same way, but FileMaker's find mode is what's called query by form. So what this means is that when you are designing the form, or you are in layout mode, and we'll switch this one back to the actual details so that we can follow along, all of the fields that you put onto FileMaker's layout in the design mode, those are all things that can be queried. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you always want everything to be queried. And the way that we can see what can be or can't be used is by the simple fact that we've got these little icons on the fields themselves right here. So each of these fields, or everything in this layout mode of FileMaker, all elements on the layout or in the design mode, they have attributes. But you can turn these on or off in terms of what their settings are. And again, you're going to find those all under the View menu, under the sub-menu of Show, where we are going to have these items right here. Everything that's checked versus not checked, and we're not going to get into all of these in this particular video, but we will throughout this series. These are all of the things that are the attributes of whatever the objects are when you're in layout mode. So right here, as we go down to this particular one right here, Quick Find, this is basically telling us, okay, this particular field is available for Quick Find. So what we need to do is we need to distinguish between Quick Find and FileMaker's regular find. So while we're in the layout mode on this copy of the database, and over here we're in find mode, we can see that each of these fields here have this little magnifying glass on them. Now, in previous versions of FileMaker, that magnifying glass may not be there, but we can see that this field, because of the magnifying glass, is something that we can click into in order to search and query the form. So if that makes sense, we designed the form here, and FileMaker is going to allow us to query by form using the exact same layout. That's one of the things that makes FileMaker so easy for users. But here's the key. As a developer, you get to choose whether or not you're going to use FileMaker's native query by form, or whether you're going to create your own ad hoc and completely separate way of searching. And there's also one other way of searching. So let's call this the 3 ways of searching within FileMaker. The default way, or the way that FileMaker is going to present, is you go into find mode and you can use the exact same form in order to search for data. The second one is you can design the way that data is searched. Now, as you become a more advanced developer, there are many times where you want to search for data that goes across more than one table. For example, when we're over here in layout mode of this same layout, and we take a look at those little icons that we've already seen right there, that little green icon that says Quick Find, or means that this field is available via Quick Find. We also have this version right here, which is an orange, or yeah, it's orange yellow, we'll call it that. So what this means is that on this particular layout, via Quick Find, and we haven't looked at Quick Find yet, we'll look at that. This field is searchable, and this field is actually a field in the table that this layout is tied to. Now, before you get confused, we're going to talk about how you tie tables to layouts and how layouts are tied to other tables. It can get pretty confusing pretty quickly, but hopefully we'll break that down in an understandable way. But this particular field right here, which doesn't even look like a field, it's got these little carets right here, which happens to mean it is a merge field, is actually coming from a separate table. So if you haven't dealt with multiple tables yet, it's basically like this. In an Excel spreadsheet or in a Google Sheets document, you can have multiple sheets. Each sheet in a spreadsheet represents a unique table. It's sort of the same way within FileMaker. Each table is similar to a separate sheet within a larger worksheet. So we'll be getting into that when we take a look at the data structure part. But right now we're just focusing on these modes. So the third mode that we're looking at, or the third feature of Find mode, is known as Quick Find. So all of these little icons on each of these fields is basically saying this is something that can be searched on. And FileMaker's Quick Find works pretty much the same way as Google Global Search. So if your title bar does not look like this, it's because I have customized mine. Let me put it back to normal here, and I'll just drag everything up here so that mine is normal. Yours probably looks like this, where you've got new record, delete record, find, sort, and share. I should have explained that in the first video, but we're doing it now. If you ever want to modify this menu bar, and we're going to be going over the menu bar and how it ties into FileMaker, its custom menus in particular, you can always right-click and customize the toolbar. And you can do that on both Windows and Macintosh. So this field right here, where we can search, is FileMaker's Quick Find. And Quick Find is something that means that every one of those fields in the layout view, those fields are going to be searched. And if you think about this, this isn't something that you always want to have happen. And FileMaker does a lot of things for you automatically that pretty much a lot of the times you don't necessarily want. So let's go through this with regards to this Find mode and this particular layout. If we are going to leave that Quick Find bar exposed, what has happened is each field that has been added to this database is Quick Find searchable, which means if we don't take the opportunity to think about this first, the user can pretty much put any piece of information in that. And in some regards, that's a great thing. If you want your FileMaker database to be Google-like, and the user can put in an office phone, mobile phone, personal phone, email, company, job title, website, first, last, what have you, that's exactly what you're going to get. But if you think about your database and you ask yourself, well, predominantly users are actually just coming in and they're searching by an invoice number, or they're searching by a last name, or they're searching by the email, then you oftentimes can turn those features off so that Quick Find isn't actually available in order to be used. So that's something to consider. FileMaker does a lot of things by default that you as a developer may not want to have happen, and you need to know that you can actually control them. So here in layout mode, we're going to show that inspector palette back, and we're going to have a ton of videos going over the inspector palette. But as I go to the view menu, you're going to find that right here under inspector. Now there are other palettes that are available. The inspector is your predominant tool while you're working in the layout mode out of the 4 modes, and it is where a lot of users probably get confused because there are a plethora of options in knowing which one to choose and when and how. That just comes with time and experience. So there are 4 tabbed areas of the inspector: the position, styles, appearance, and data. Those words used to be under here, and the quick tip that you get on the inspector palette in particular is that each of these 4 areas can be accessed with a keyboard shortcut, and that is corresponding to 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I use Command 1, it will switch to the Position tab. These used to show as actual tabs in previous versions of FileMaker, but now they just show as icons. Command 2 will switch me to the styles, the less frequently used one. Command 3 will switch me to this one, and Command 4. Now, when you're working in layout mode, you will be doing that so often that I suggest that right now you actually practice that Command or Control 1, 2, and 3, and just continually press them right after each other in order to cycle through each of these areas. Now, we will be getting into the sub areas, but as I closed the field one, the one that we're actually looking for in terms of the data is this one right here, behavior, with a particular field selected. And I'll select this one right down here with this little icon that says include in quick find. I believe that's the first name, which I probably would want to leave selected. But there is our option right there, include field for quick find. And so we would be able to uncheck that. The little icon will go away, and that means when we are using that little search bar, which we have up here, the search bar for quick find, that would actually go away. And that's an important thing to know because you are able to completely, as I've already stated, change up the way that searching happens. You don't have to use FileMaker's query by form, where in find mode, the user has all of these different options. You can create your own custom find and limit it to just the fields that you want to limit the user to search. And by doing so, it gives you more control over getting the user where the user needs to be in terms of finding what they're looking for in a quicker fashion. How you used all of these different find modes are completely up to you. But again, as I stated in yesterday's video, remember, FileMaker is nothing more than an automation environment for everything that you find in the menus and the interface as well. So if I'm in browse mode, which I'm doing with Command B right now, and I was to use this quick find, nothing prevents you from putting a field on your layout that will simply do the exact same thing that this does up here. So for example, if I'm using FileMaker as a development environment and I don't necessarily want the user to see all of these different icons, if I hide that, which I'm doing with Command-Shift-S, you're going to find that under the View menu of Status Bar. If I want to hide that and take full control over the window, but I still want to use that quick find feature, well, I'm going to end up having to put a field on the layout which will actually do the exact same thing as what this field does right here. But I'm taking control over the environment of the mode and turning it off. So that's our explanation of the 4 modes that we have, and there's just a little bit more that I'm going to go through. Each of these lessons are designed to be about a half an hour in length, and then if you have questions, you're able to use the chat that is available. So if you have any questions, go ahead and get those ready. Otherwise, we are going to continue with the resources and FileMaker's help. Here is something that when you are starting with FileMaker, it can be very complex and you may not know how to do what you want to do, but you know that there's an answer somewhere out there. So that's what we're going to be going through for the next few minutes here is how do you actually find the answer to the problem that you're looking for? Well, we all know that there's resources out there and available. And the first one that you're going to find available to you is the FileMaker Help. Now, I, of course, am using FileMaker Pro Advanced. You should be doing that if you want to follow along in depth with this series, because Advanced gives you access to the tools that you need as a developer. And the first thing that we're going to learn is that FileMaker, at least in FileMaker, it may have been 15, it may be 16, they used to provide their help as part of the download or the install of FileMaker, but that's not the case with FileMaker 16 and higher. The help is only available online, or when you select on the link, and it makes sense. It allows FileMaker to update the help at any point in time, but if you ever find yourself without a connection, that really doesn't help you a whole lot. So as I've selected within FileMaker and gone to the help area, down here at the bottom we can see that there is a link that says download FileMaker Pro 16 help. So this is where you're going to want to click this link. It will download an exact copy of everything that we have here on the web, and we can then have it on our hard drive. Now what makes this really nice is you can use this as a reference. But what isn't so nice is I haven't quite used it. You've got this little search feature right here in the web page in order to search help. So let's say, for example, there is a particular custom function we want to know what it does. Yesterday, we took a look at get username, and I know that it was a username. Let's say I didn't know that it was a get function. So I'm just going to search for the value of username here. This does search FileMaker Pro's help online and actually finds the get username. The reason that I don't know whether or not this feature actually works when you download the help is because I use a completely separate tool for searching FileMaker's help. And I'm going to show you that tool and where you can get it, and also on Windows, that available version as well. So I need to actually try that out, and you can do it as well. You can download the help, open it locally on your hard drive, and then see if it actually works. It may. I don't know. I just haven't verified it. But the way that I access help is using a completely separate tool. And the reason that I do that is because as a developer, I work with other development environments. So the tool that I actually use is one that I always suggest to developers. It is a tool that you do have to buy. It is called Dash, and it's Dash for Mac OS. And what Dash allows you to do is it allows you to have multiple different sets of documentation in order to be able to find what it is you're looking for, and it does it a little bit faster. So I'm going to bring Dash up on screen here, and I will drag this in. Now you will see that this is roughly the same thing as what we did in FileMaker's help, its online provided version. I already have username typed in right here, and what this does is Dash allows you to have multiple documentation sets. In fact, we'll take a look at that by clearing the search. You can see here that I have a lot of different sets of documentation: JavaScript, jQuery, HTML, CSS. These are technologies and things that you will probably want to learn if you're wanting to become an advanced FileMaker developer, and that's because you can integrate them into FileMaker, HTML and CSS via web viewers in particular, which we'll be taking a look at. But down here at the bottom, you can see that we have FileMaker Pro 16 available. Now the way that you access this is when you click the plus here, there is this option to download doc sets, and also the same area as manage doc sets. When I click on download doc sets, it's going to bring up the preferences. Now the preferences are going to show main doc sets, and these are all of the super popular programming languages. And unfortunately, FileMaker isn't super popular, but it is popular enough that we have user contributed document set. So when you select here, that will load, and if you scroll down the list, you will find FileMaker, and that's from Jason P. Scharf. So Jason, thank you very much for converting these documentation sets. You will have these options where you can install versus uninstall, and you can see that we've got all the previous versions. So if you are limited to a previous version, then you can actually download that as well. And the great thing about Dash is it allows you to find things quickly. So as I switch here to FileMaker Pro, the one little kicker is in order to search and limit my search, because normally this search is going to search across all of these documents for all these different languages, I have to hold down the Command key in this particular case and hit Enter. And you can see that a little icon actually showed up, and that's what I'm going to limit my search to now. I'm limiting my search to FileMaker. I can click and select none there, but it is currently because I hit that command and return, searching the FileMaker Pro 16 documentation only instead of all of the other docs. So now I can just type in username, and it is pretty fast. It's a lot faster than if I use the documentation that FileMaker provides or try to search within the browser. So it's a very quick way to get to the documentation. Now, if you are a Windows user, let's take a look at that. Here is the URL, by the way. It is capelli.com/dash for downloading Dash, and I highly suggest you purchase that one if you're working at any length. We have a Dash clone at this URL, velocity.silverlakesoftware.com, and it turns out that this one is actually free. And this is for those of you on Windows. You're able to download that, and you can see that it provides all of the different documentation sets available on Dash. So just like we did on the copy for Macintosh, you're actually going to be able to go into this little link, I believe, or somewhere up in here in the UI. You're going to be able to go to the user contributed, download FileMaker's documentation set, and you have a quick way to find documentation on FileMaker. So now that we've got documentation down, we can find FileMaker's documentation quickly and efficiently as we're working in FileMaker. And another good thing is having this Dash running while FileMaker is running. You can be working on your database, switch over to the documentation database, be able to look something up quickly, find out information. It is not uncommon for me to be in Dash, forget what a function does. Let's say it's the system platform. I don't remember its system platform. I just remember plat for platform. I find that it's very common for me to actually just select this, copy the function right here from the documentation, and go into FileMaker and paste that into the data viewer or into my calculation as we're going to be learning. So documentation for a developer is a key thing, but so is getting help. When you don't know how to solve a problem, then you need to know some places that you can go. So as we hide this copy of Safari and this one, let's take a look at what I've got right here. Where is it? Is that there's the window right there. So I'm going to leave you with today, before we get to questions, not all, but a lot of the different places that you can go to in order to find things about FileMaker. Now, the first thing, when we are doing research on our problem about FileMaker, the first thing that we want to do is we want to know that we can always search Google. And it pays in order to know how to search Google. You can see what I've done is I've input a particular type of search here. And if you haven't done this with Google, then I highly suggest that you learn advanced Google searching. First off, there are these things known as qualifiers, where you qualify, I think that's what they call them, what type of search you actually want to perform. So in this case, I was looking for the keyword of system platform, or maybe I was just looking for platform. So searching on the web, we're bypassing the fact that you should get Dash or Velocity and use that for your help, or you've downloaded FileMaker's help and you can use that. If you happen to be on the web and you want to limit your search to a specific site, you use the qualifier of site. You then use the domain of FileMaker.com, which is going to search not just FileMaker.com, but as you can see, fmhelp.FileMaker.com. In this case, I put another qualifier of in URL, and that's because I know that FileMaker's help actually includes the version number within the URL. So if I qualify my search by saying what must be in the URL is 16, the version of FileMaker, and I'm looking for system platform, the first value that I get by searching Google in this fashion is get system platform. It is right there, and then I can click on that and get all the details. It takes me right to the help and gives me exactly what I'm looking for. So knowing how to use that particular method of searching is going to pay off very big when you're learning FileMaker. Reason being is we can use our resources now in order to search that. And what are our resources? Well, here are the most popular ones. We have community.filemaker.com. This is FileMaker's TechNet. This is one of the places that a lot of developers go to in order to ask and answer questions. If you do not currently have an account, it's free, and I would highly suggest getting one. This is where you can both search and look for your answers. Of course, there is a built-in search that is available here, but of course, if you simply remember, I want to limit my search to a particular site, nothing prevents you from doing this right here. I want to actually limit my search to community.filemaker.com using Google, take out your in URL, and put whatever you're looking for. Maybe you're looking for the word broken portal, which is the object that we use in order to view related records, and we'll see that this would actually give us results. Looking on the FileMaker community site specifically for the keywords broken portal. Now it looks like because I had a space there accidentally, it did actually search another site. I saw FM forums in there, but you can see right here, portals stop working. Dashboard layouts show no records. Style theme broken. You can see that Google's going to sometimes do a little bit better of a job searching certain sites for information when you have a particular problem. So what are some other sites? Well, we've got FM forums. This is one of there are two super popular forums, and these are good places to search. Remember, you can search using Google FM forums, or you can use the search on the FM forums website. And the other forum website to be aware of is the FileMaker Today forums, and they have that at filemakertoday.com/com/forum.php. So those two forums are great places to get your answer for your problem, or at least to search for your answer. Now let's take a look at social media. If you want to stay abreast of FileMaker information, Twitter is a great way to search, because people who are providing information about FileMaker, they're often doing it somewhere on some type of social media. Twitter is probably the next most popular for FileMaker. I would suggest once you go to, and I originally put in myself, search.twitter.com. That's just how I remember it. It will redirect to twitter.com search-home. But what I suggest is actually doing an advanced search when you're using Twitter to look for. So if you're looking for FileMaker products or FileMaker things specific to whatever it is you're trying to solve, you can use this advanced search. And of course, you have all these words, exact phrase, any of these words. This allows you to really drill down and find out on Twitter anything that anybody has posted about FileMaker. It's really pretty nice. And you can, of course, filter based on your particular language. In fact, we will see one of the things that I do. I'll switch over to it quickly. Here is a copy of an application called TweetDeck. And TweetDeck, how I keep abreast of FileMaker, as you can see right here, is to search for the hashtag FileMaker, limiting it to the language of English. And so this is just a specific feed that comes out of Twitter on this particular application that I constantly look at, that actually keeps me in the know of what's going on with FileMaker. Issues that come up, new products that people post, solutions, tips, tricks, techniques, what have you. It's basically how I stay ahead of the FileMaker game. Of course, we have Facebook. Facebook is another place. If you're a Facebook user, then please go to Facebook, and you will find a couple of groups. We have a FileMaker groups where it is groups/FileMaker devs. And there is also a tips and tricks that you will find here as a post. This link will actually take you to the FileMaker tips link. And we get users that post answers and questions there as well. And finally, Stack, some of the lesser known areas, but when you do Google searches for FileMaker problems, you will of course come up with Stack Overflow, a very popular location. There is a FileMaker focused area on that. Not a whole lot of use in this particular area, but it does have a few answers for those who are on Stack Overflow. And then likewise, and let's show the URL for that. Likewise, we have Reddit, another popular area. Now, FileMaker, the environment happens to be made up with, I'm not going to say all older people, but a lot of developers that started with FileMaker was back in the 90s. And before a lot of open source came out and was made available, a lot of your developers are older, or tend to be older, but that does not mean by any means that FileMaker is not for younger developers. In fact, if you're a younger developer, it is an absolutely brilliant way to get into just development as a whole. I can say honestly, without batting an eye that I can develop because of FileMaker. I know PHP, JavaScript, Java, many other languages because of learning in FileMaker. And that's my hope, is throughout the course of these videos, the same will happen for you. You will feel empowered and you'll be able to take FileMaker by storm. So that's probably gone a little over the 30 minutes. I'm going to go to the question and answer section now. Let me bring the chat on screen for you and switch over to, I think this is my, there we go. So if you have any questions about FileMaker, I've only got one that came in here. As of the recording of this video, we've only got 11 people on the chat, but the previous video got, so far, 275 views already, which is really nice to hear about. If anyone is on the chat and you do have a question, feel free to ask that. Otherwise, I will probably wrap this video up. If you have any suggestions, comments, feedback, please leave that on the video for anybody else. If you have FileMaker resources that you want to point to, make this video something that other people can learn from and find online. That's why I'm doing these series of videos. I'm going to be shooting this for half an hour each day for 2 weeks, giving you every little tidbit and piece of knowledge that I have about developing in FileMaker Pro. So it looks like we don't, for those who are logged on, currently live, we don't have too many questions. What I'm going to do is I am going to switch this back to my desktop, and I am going to bid you farewell for this particular video. In the next video, let me take a quick look at what I have coming up here. In the next video with regards to environment, we are going to be, that's when we're going to be getting into that manage area. We're finally going to be jumping into the manage, taking a look at the manage database in particular, and going through all of the different areas where you manage things within FileMaker. We know now how to find things in terms of going and doing our research. We know our documentation. We are ready to start learning the different aspects of FileMaker development with regards to the environment. So with that, I think I'm going to leave you with a goodbye. I hope that this video has helped you out with your own FileMaker development. On my magazine videos, I always wish everybody much luck and happy FileMaking. I'm doing that for you in this video, and until the next one, I'll see you then.